You know nothing about them. You don't see their faces or insignias. But you know for sure they exist. They have the best equipment, the most modern tools, and the toughest training. They are the special forces of the National Guard of Ukraine. They are Omega. These are the ones who can hold the rank of colonel by the age of 30. Those who, regardless of insignia, step into the gray zone and destroy the enemy. Those who blow up bridges in the enemy's rear and kill the enemy with a single shot from 2 kilometers away. They don't talk much. They just do their job. Brains, your physical shape, and being ready to roll. Those are the top 3 must-haves for a special ops guy.
He won't be like, I don't know this, or I won't do this. He'll just do what he is told. I personally enjoy, no matter what I'm doing, destroying as many invaders as possible. Trust me, every brigade commander would like to have some special operations squad acting in their zone. Move, move, move!
I don't believe people who say I'm not afraid.
I'm not just an instructor, I'm also a fighter. Exhale. I've got the perfect job for me.
For me personally, this is the best job in the world.
I'm proud of what I do, proud of the path I've chosen.
We gotta do this to be happy with the outcome, get everything done smoothly, practically, and looking good. My journey started in the National Guard of Ukraine back in 2013. From 2013 to 2018 I served in a Special Forces unit. When I was still in the Recon platoon, we used to see Omega all the time. We saw each other, observed their unit. Every serviceman in our ranks wanted to join Omega, because being a part of that unit was considered the pinnacle of professionalism. My cousin also served in a Special Forces unit. I saw those guys are tough, strong, and really determined. Why did I choose Omega? Because it's a well-formed team, most of the crew are officers.
Each one is an expert at what he does, and you know, there is a kind of military romance. Before I joined Omega, I used to be a firearms instructor. You know, in a country that's at war, an instructor without combat experience just doesn't cut it. So I decided to switch to the most combat-ready unit in the National Guard I knew about.
I've been recommended to join it a long time ago, but it's quite challenging to get in here.
You gotta ace the fitness and psychological tests, and sometimes undergo lie detector tests. The selection includes military basics, running 3 kilometers, doing pull-ups, a 100-meter sprint, the Cooper test, and a 3-round sparring session. Yeah, knock him down. You're already running on fumes when they throw in a fresh fighter who is a level above you. I have always loved shooting. I was good at it, but I didn't have any high level of physical fitness. And when I decided to transfer to Omega, I had to train hard for several months. Yes, physical training is a must, in any case. There is such a thing as endurance. This is the most important thing you need. But it's not only physical, but also moral endurance.
We check people in all databases. We use the capabilities of other law enforcement agencies and security forces.
Who will not make it to Omega?
The spy will not get in. the one who is weak morally and physically, and moral qualities are given nearly more attention than physical ones.
I always told everyone, you know, there is a risk that you won't come back home. It's a simple thing, but it could stump some people.
You enter for like 3 hours. Psychologists talk to you, you take tests, commanders and group leaders talk to you, the deputy commander of the unit talks to you. It's like going in for questioning with investigators. You can't train a fighter in a year or 2 or even 3. A mid-level special forces fighter undergoes training for about 5 years.
According to our estimates, the fighter needs several real missions to see how he handles himself. There are different people and they perceive challenges differently. They might have thought it wouldn't be a big deal, but it doesn't always go as expected. When someone is in a special force unit, we invest a lot of resources, sweat and blood in it. A person is the most valuable asset we have. You can buy all sorts of gear, but you cannot buy a person.
That's why, so to speak, they take care of us. Because just one loss is a big blow to the unit.
They say that no one is irreplaceable, but I believe that most of us are irreplaceable, as we know how hard it is to train and put someone into battle who is morally and physically prepared for it.
If you say you're a special forces fighter, you have to live up to that status. If one understands it, if one strives for it and mentally prepared to always be the first, to be ahead of everyone, then he becomes a special forces fighter. To me, the key thing is never be ashamed, neither for myself nor for my folks. Summer 2023. Everyone is anticipating the start of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. As the Ministry of Defense puts it, it's supposed to happen in the south. Near Velika Novosilka in Donetsk region, it all starts 1 June morning at 5 a.m. Several APCs from the Omega Special Forces advance towards the positions of Russian forces. Meanwhile, other squads from the unit are dealing with the occupiers on nearby fronts. Within a week, they managed to eliminate 5 tanks, several armored vehicles, demining vehicles and trucks. It seemed like the counteroffensive had started successfully. However, it soon becomes clear that what they planned won't be executed as swiftly as hoped. All of this is discussed numerous times because there are no identical tasks. Each task is analyzed, planned. If it can be rehearsed, we'll rehearse it. A lot of our guys have been through staff training in NATO countries, and we've seen a significant difference according to NATO standards compared to outdated Soviet ones. This is evident on the battlefield when we have fewer forces and resources than the Russians. Nevertheless, we still have a certain advantage in combat.
Let's set a critical point right away. If we lose one combat group, we call off the operation, right? Yes, since we are advancing, the initiative is on our side.
The blue ones are ours, and the ones painted in red are the enemy. It's all on the map, and around it are the Omega officers. They are acting out the scenario of advancing on the enemy fortifications, moving the pieces step by step on the map, considering all possible scenarios.
Orlan works systematically and aims to detect the opponent.
Orlan is a Russian UAV. In this scenario, the Omega Scout plays the role of the adversary. He faces off against the planning officer. Each side has its own set of fighters and gear, and they go step by step, deploying their forces. It's like a board game, but they all realize that the stakes in this game are incredibly high, the lives of their bodies.
They will rush, gather and gradually advance. Blocking options to encircle, snipers will have our backs. There will be drones with thermal imagers, drones ready for drops. They will accompany my group, which will be moving gradually.
This is how it looks on the map, and here's how it is on the battlefield. They advance, the enemy fires back. They destroy enemy fortifications, but spot a wounded comrade nearby and try to pull him out of the battlefield. And to know what to do and when, they always have to train.
If we have got the time to get ready, then sure, we'll be using every bit of it to figure out all the ways we can nail this task successfully. The whole group sits down, discussing all the nuances. It's crucial to have someone in the group who will ask, what if this or that happens? What if they hit here? What if they attack there? The more what-ifs, the higher the chance that in case something deviates from the plan, you won't be stuck, but will act according to the situation.
In good units, everything is built on authority. We all respect each other, and this respect fosters effective communication. I'm the boss and it's my way or the highway is completely wrong. If anyone still operates like that, it's high time to retire. We encourage everyone to think, so in our crew everyone chips in on planning operations and problem solving. Even a private can drop a smart idea that the commander might miss. This is a pre-planned operation that doesn't unfold in half of an hour. You go in, gather intel, the commander does the same. Then, step by step, it all comes together. For us as fighters, even before we step out, before we reckon and check the lay of the land, there's already a certain picture that we see, and we go in precisely aiming for our specific targets.
If it's a place we know well, that's the bare minimum for getting ready. Get together, prep the gear, load up, assign roles, and figure out who is doing what in the group.
From when the commander gives the task to when we carried it out, it could be an hour, but there are also tasks that stretch out over 3-4 days. During one classified operation, when we needed to cross the Dnieper River, it was full of algal blooms and visibility was minimal. Our divers had to come up with all sorts of ways to cross the river, deal with mines on the other side and keep moving. When I talked to folks from our partner countries, they were like, no way. Depth gauge were useless due to given circumstances. But our guys somehow pulled it off using some clever tricks and tools. The maximum duration of our preparation was 2 weeks. It was a specific task that we trained for and so on. We pulled it off successfully. I'd love to spill more details, honestly, but as our top brass says, after the war. I wish I could tell you more, but I can't. The operation Vitaly is referring to is just one of hundreds that can't be talked about. Disclosing tactics of special forces could compromise their effectiveness. Still, Omega reluctantly decides to give a sneak peek behind the curtain of the special ops secrets.
Tasks like those in the GUR, we don't have such. Essentially, we operate with infantry support. Going to Crimea and coming back, such tasks aren't our mission.
Spring 2022, north of Donetsk region. One of the groups of the 3rd Omega unit is tasked with locating the positions of enemy artillery shelling Ukrainian fortifications. 10 Special Forces soldiers crossed the front line. As we were moving up to the positions we were assigned to work in, we heard over the radio that a group of approximately 50 enemy soldiers had infiltrated behind our lines to the COP. Turns out they had our COP surrounded. There was our group commander, the company commander, which were holding the village, a comms guy, and one more body. These are the scenes from that very battle. Omega returns to the control and observation point and spots the enemy, 5 times their number. Yet, the special forces engage in combat. They break through the encirclement and drive the invaders into 2 houses, where they are all eliminated. We were clueless about the enemy, but we knew where the safe spots were, where it was dangerous, and we knew our commander, our guys were there. And we knew there was no other way. We had to beat back that COP. Perhaps even if we had the exact count at that time, it wouldn't have changed our minds. We would have still gone in and rescued our guys, because what else could we do? Saying we weren't up for land missions would have been a slap in the face. We can handle both land and our diving missions just fine. All the enemy's rear areas are accessible to us. We can operate anywhere. Wherever there's water, we can handle any task. Give me time, give me the equipment, and we'll tackle any mission. First, let's call it a diving rule. Understanding the physiology of underwater diving. What happens to you at any given moment. That is, you must understand your breathing, your condition, what's happening with your hands, your legs, your head. And you've got to get used to your diving gear, your second skin. It's a weird feeling being squeezed and twisted a bit. There is a funny tradition, like an initiation into diving. A diver is getting slapped with a fin against his butt. It's always like that after the first dive for a military diver, like an initiation. Here time passes a bit differently. It might seem like 40 minutes have gone by, but in reality you've been underwater for an hour and a half. Sometimes it's the other way around. Different bodies of water have different visibility. The sea is one thing, a river is another. I've had times when I had to cover my eyes and just feel my way. The route is our safety, and it's the safety of folks for whom we are charting this course. It's done either with digital devices or using old-school tools like a compass for navigation. It's quite expensive, both the training of a diver and the equipment. It's pricey. For example, let's compare simple land navigation to underwater one. Land navigation sets you back about $1,000. Underwater navigation will run you about $7,000, even though functions are essentially the same. Gear is pricey, but it's money well spent. It saves the diver a lot of effort and time. Like, now you don't need to mess with the manual depth gauge. You've got a computer right on your mask telling you how deep you are and where you headed. Filling up oxygen ain't cheap either. Refueling the devices with chemicals that clean the diver's exhalation also costs money. Everything's got a price tag. Even the time spent teaching a diver costs money, because the government is paying me a salary while I'm at it. It adds up to around $100,000 per diver. And if you consider the knowledge and experience of the diver themselves, I would say it's millions. Training a diver takes 3 months. There is another month for special training within the unit, and another month for combat coordination. These are minimum time frames. Finding trained divers and bringing them into our group is impossible.
Jump!
That is, I need to take a man and teach him from scratch. Finding a diver ready for action is just not possible at the moment, because they simply don't exist.
We are special forces only on duty, when performing our official duties. In civilian life, we are ordinary people trying not to stand out. It's like in the movies. Nobody knows about us, and nobody needs to. The main thing is that we do our job. I would like more recognition, but as Chris Kyle, the most successful sniper in America, wrote in his autobiography, we are silent professionals who quietly get the job done. Our next job, if we boast about the previous one, will not yield results. It could really do harm.
Special ops guys are proud of themselves. They are Special Forces label, but they keep it low-key. If someone goes around bragging about being Special Ops, I'd start to wonder if he is the real deal. Whenever I go on a mission, my wife sort of interrogates me. I always say everything's fine, and she's always upset that I don't tell her anything.
My family doesn't need to know the challenges we are facing here. My mom, getting more gray hair, is not gonna help me out. If you are doing a job in the combat zone and you are still alive, then you are probably doing it effectively. If you are effective at your job, then people on the other side are probably curious about who you are. And you have a family, you have kids. These guys are top-tier units, like snipers. The enemy is always on the hunt for them, And we are aware that there have been cases where they operate on our territory. Roughly speaking, FSB doesn't sleep. Everyone should be where they belong, doing what they do best. I wanted to be a sniper, I made it happen, and I don't regret it. I served as a sniper during my conscription. When I've arrived to the unit, I was offered to stay in the same position. I agreed because, so to speak, it's my hobby and my favorite thing to do. The sniper may have various objectives, starting from eliminating ordinary Russian infantrymen. Still, there are also enemy gunners, drone operators, who move closer to the front line to fly their drones as far as possible. Sometimes we were told like there is a sniper team walking this area and we gotta find and take them out. Sniper, regardless of whether he is Ukrainian or Russian, is a highly trained military professional in many aspects. The sniper duel is a sort of military romance. When a skilled sniper manages to take down another trained sniper, it's about 90% just luck. You've got to remember, it's not just about spotting the enemy, it's also about staying hidden. It's about having a prepared and well-concealed position. Everything must be done so that the enemy doesn't notice any changes in the landscape. The concept of a sniper kit goes beyond just a rifle and an optical sight. It includes a rangefinder, a weather station, and a ballistic calculator. It also involves the preparation of the shooter, ability to identify a target, determine the distance to it, make adjustments, and effectively handle all this data, which can also be constantly changing. Just hitting the mark doesn't make you a sniper. The toughest part, I think, is overcoming yourself. A sniper has got to know when to hold off on the shot if he ain't fully prepared. Maybe he hasn't timed his breath right. Another big thing for a sniper is to realize that taking a shot right now means giving away his position. I mostly operated in daylight. Spotting targets at a long range through a thermal scope can get tricky. I prefer working at night. Using thermal scopes is simple. Just press the rangefinder button on the scope, already integrated into it. It automatically calculates all the data for me. All that's left is to aim and press the trigger. The comfortable distance for a sniper to walk is about 1 kilometer, up to 1200 meters. What the farthest you have had to walk? Almost 2 kilometers, 1950 meters. Snipers typically treat their weapons with great respect, rarely letting anyone even hold their rifle. Maybe it's just a thing, but snipers really love their rifles. I praise her if he makes an accurate shot.
Spring 2022. Battles rage across nearly half of Ukraine's territory. Among the fiercest are those near Mariupol in Donetsk region. Invaders besiege the city. Some Ukrainian units hold the Azovstal plant and continue the defense. Other groups of fighters seek to break out the encirclement. 10 Marines are among them. They have already covered about 60 kilometers behind the enemy lines. Only about 20 kilometers separate them from friendly forces. Marines managed to get in touch with command. A rescue group of Omega fighters is dispatched to their aid. They scope out the area with drones first, then head out to link up with the Marines. Crossing enemy lines, they slip into the enemy's backyard. Enemies are all around. Omega fighters locate the Marines and lead them back to Ukrainian-controlled territory.
It might look pretty when you are watching a war movie on TV, that's where the beauty is, but out here it's a whole different story. A sapper is the one leading the charge on a mission, making sure the team doesn't step on any mines or trip wires.
You may just walk and spot something suspicious. You call the engineer, he takes a look and goes like, "Hey, that's an AP mine or something similar."
My top priority at the moment is making sure no one from my squad comes across any explosive devices, like tripwires or mines. The enemy has quite advanced mines with seismic sensors that react to human steps. You might not even see them, but they can see you, and when you get close enough, they go off. That's the biggest danger, I believe. Secondly, the fact that you always lead the way means that if you get caught, you'll be the first one who flies away. Go!
Distance varies. Today you may have to walk just 100 meters. The other day it can be 5-6 kilometers. Right now I'm working with anti-tank missiles. We use them against both manpower and armored vehicles, as well as fortified targets like bunkers and trenches. ATGMs can destroy anything. The job is to detect weak spots, concentrations of personnel and logistics routes. We have this code for it, I'm on duty. We grabbed a bunch of rockets, nailed some good shots, but Russians just don't get it. They keep sending in waves of troops like meat storms, and we are there, eliminating them, but they just keep coming. You end up telling your body, run for the rockets, because there's work to do. There were times when we ran after missiles for 1.5 kilometers. We call it work, just like you have the task of going to the store. Our commander assigns us tasks to monitor, identify, destroy, and return alive from that area.
It's crucial in our work to notice everything and react quickly to changes in the situation. A scout has a task and all the tools in his brain to accomplish it. We are out there scouting passages, locating enemies, digging out information from places where radio communication equipment and UAVs can't reach. Sometimes we gotta sneak out into the woods at night, just to listen in on the enemy vehicle and figure out where they are heading, maybe even count numbers by sound alone. Nowadays, Recon is all about the tech stuff, and it's really good at it. Also, there is no need to risk human lives by sending them somewhere, especially considering that electronic devices can do it more effectively and see more. In 2014, I was unaware of drones and didn't even consider their existence, right? Now they're constantly making their presence known to me.
I can imagine what could have happened to us and what the consequences of this aggression might have been if we hadn't developed one of the war's gems. Aerial Recon. If there are many drones, you can understand the entire front line and monitor it 24/7, and this is very important. You can see any movement of the enemy. Drones are best at detecting movement. If the enemies hide out, camouflage themselves, it is difficult to visually detect them. But if they start moving, you notice it fast. And then you can send in the artillery, grads or whatever. We must realize that as scouts we are one of the priority targets. And we are being hunted. Just as we monitor them, the enemy tries to observe us. They're looking for where we are flying, how we are flying, so we gotta find our spot to walk from. Just walking somewhere and taking off is wrong, because you're exposing the group to danger as well as yourself. You need to find the position by walking on foot to see where you can take off from. It's one thing to study the map, but when you get there, you may see different landscape. Then you return for your gear and start flying. Firstly, aerial recon operator gotta be a top-notch spotter who can feed info. Secondly, when you're on the ground, you gotta put those skills to do your job. Drones are like your extra set of eyes. So military training is a must for everyone, cause this ain't a game, and even if it were, it's a darn expensive one. You can't save your progress here, reload the level, you're playing and the bet is live. It's when you're droning and either we're under attack or the enemy is getting hit. Seeing people die, man, it hits hard and you realize this ain't movie, it's all going down just a few kilometers away. Commanders are on the ground, they can see the situation as clear as day, if it's all set up, of course, so they can make correct decisions and, most importantly, timely ones. Battalion commander now operates at the level of a brigade commander, managing his units and attached forces, which may include artillery, even tanks. Now they can control them during the assault just by looking at the screen. 2 years back it felt like something out of a movie. But now it's reality. Some are mastering recon drones, others strike ones. FPV kamikaze drones is a very intriguing subject that is currently evolving, and if we train many pilots, it will be much easier for us to eliminate the enemy. If you destroy certain equipment, the enemy can no longer transport ammunition, personnel, and so on. The more equipment you destroy, the harder it becomes for the enemy to advance further and consolidate positions.
On the Telegram channel we see a 30-second video where guys drop grenades on their opponents' heads, and everyone thinks, wow, that's so easy, but the truth is, no one knows how many drones went down, how many grenades didn't fizzle out, how many times things went boom, how many rides it took to get to some spot just to get that 30-second footage. This branch will undergo significant development, but we must remember that until the infantry's foot touches the soil, it remains nobody's.
June 2022. Fierce battles rage in Donbass. Severodonetsk and Luhansk region is a real hotspot. Invaders attempt to seize the city. That's when a team of 20 Omega fighters gets the mission to take control of a factory in town. At that moment, it was controlled by the Russians. According to intelligence, they outnumbered Omega by at least 8 times. Despite this, through swift maneuvering and precise planning, special forces managed to dislodge the enemy. Most of the invaders flee, while 6 are captured. For the next 4 days, Omega and adjacent unit hold the factory while Russian artillery rains down. Eventually, Omega unit will withdraw from the positions. They will be among the last to leave the completely devastated Severodonetsk occupied by the enemy. Training, real combat experience, firmness of character, intellect is very important. Senior officers go out together with regular personnel, surgeons. You won't see any differences. They eat, sleep on equal terms, regardless of their military rank. Commander may have subordinates senior to him in rank, but the commander is the commander, and the members of the combat group listen to him. If you were to say when a Special Forces soldier encounters a regular infantry unit on the battlefield, yes, he has the advantage. If a Special Forces soldier encounters another Special Forces soldier, it's an even match. And here creativity must be highly developed. How to outsmart, that's what the commander is constantly thinking about.
If you are not constantly improving, you are falling behind the enemy. The enemy has professional special forces, and if you are not learning, they might be. The enemy behaves aggressively, much like we do. They are fired up as we are. So, while we fight for our country, they believe they are fighting for theirs too. Even a newbie who got drafted 2 months back learns a lot on the front line in 2 months if he doesn't die. That's how he starts to become a halfway decent soldier. Throughout Russia's history, there has been a war every decade. They've got a professionally trained army. But at the start of the war, it used to be a real mess. But now, they have learned a lot from us. They are adopting new battle tactics. Previously, they used to storm in columns, whole brigades, regiments. Now, it's all about these small group hits.
Contacts occurred at various distances, the closest around 20 to 30 meters. Picture this. You're in the middle of a firefight, blasting away. Then you glance over, someone's sneaking around, could be our guy, could be theirs. How close did I get to the enemy? 1.5 meters. My buddy and I took out 5 invaders at a distance of 1.5 meters.
For a Special Forces soldier, it's important not only to master the weapon, but primarily to master oneself, to control fear and thoughts.
As they say, only a fool isn't afraid. The sense of fear helps to focus attention. You see more, hear more, analyze more. We can control our fear. What will you turn fear into? Adrenaline giving you strength, or sheer terror driving you underground, hiding your head like an ostrich? I choose adrenaline. It may even shake break me in such situations, but I turn it into additional strength and resilience.
I can tell when fear turns off. It happens when a medic gets tunnel vision. There you see only the wounded, his injuries, and you start doing your job. Being a medic is like top-notch add-on to other military roles. It so happened that I'm now the medic in the group, and I also serve as the tactical medicine instructor. Having a medic everyone trusts is a game changer for morale. The group understands that the chances of survival are significantly higher. Once you're out of the combat zone, our guys take their trainings way more seriously, and they are into them. Before, it might have felt like a game. But now, when you're on a tight spot on the front line, you realize it's no joke. There, this game saves lives. I got 2 wounded in action, conscious but hit with shrapnel. Need evac. You copy? Over. Griffon, this is Brigadier. From 6 o'clock, Demix and Yenot groups are moving forwards your position. Move out to meet them, provide assistance, establish defense by 360. Tasks like today's, we call them scenarios. I take scenarios from real life. It's either my own experience or the experience of my bodies. But in war, there will never be this scenario you already rolled out, because there is no Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, it's not about war. The TCCC rule goes like this: if you see someone injured, you are the one who's got to help them out. Don't wait for a medic. Take action yourself. What hurts you? What is hurting? Here, probably got hit. Got hit, understood. Let's take off the body armor. Right side. I'm checking for massive bleeding. You take off the body armor. Now you're exhaling, brother. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, exhale. You must be trained, seasoned, as we say, at least in tactical training, not to mention combat conditions. A medic after combat, that's a lifesaver. There is never enough of medical help, because the main rule of a combat medic is to be hungry for it. You gotta provide all the help the wounded in action needs. You never know what's gonna happen in a minute, in 5 or 10. Brigadier, I'm Yenot. They are bringing one out. How is he doing? Nobody is safe from a sudden close encounter with the enemy. A new casualty can always appear while you have used up all your medical supplies on a person you couldn't save. Throw my legs over there. Dude, you don't need them anymore. Medicine, if not the most important, then definitely comes right after. Since we are here to fight for Ukraine, not to die for it, combat training is the number one. Nevertheless, being a combat medic is not just about evacuation. A medic can very well be a combat unit too. 2 o'clock, enemy's vehicle. Javelin. Use the javelin. Need one more to help. Need one more to Spartak. I'm cold. I know, buddy. The toughest part is the care on the fire zone, the area where you're right on the thick of it with the enemy. In addition to continuing to engage in combat, you also somehow have to provide medical assistance. That's why we teach combat medics that in the care on the fire zone, when the enemy fire is intense, we don't do medicine, because our gunfire is way more useful than medical care. Move, I've got your back. If we effectively kill the enemy, then we won't have to save our own lives. Yeah, better I'll turn it all off. By the way, that's the voice of my comrade. He passed away, but you need to have motivation to do all this.
They used to serve in Azov. In 2019, Maxim moved to Omega, but his body stayed behind. He was one of those who defended Azovstal in Mariupol in the spring of 2022. That's where he recorded those voice messages for Maxim. It was there, in battle, that he died.
If it started out as, you know, just some fun times with the guys, it's not like that anymore. Because unfortunately, most of those guys I had fun with are no longer alive. So, now it's more about revenge.
Toughest thing is seeing your bodies in the graveyard. That hits you hard and you've got to be ready for it and then be ready to pick up your gun again and go fight. What I'm doing now, I'm doing it for them. We promised to get a payback and we are keeping that promise.
It's really tough to stay optimistic when you are right in the thick of it, in the middle of the war. You see everything, you know what's propaganda and what's real, so I don't expect Ukraine's victory to come anytime soon. Ukrainian victory is inability of Russia to conduct aggressive military operations. This empire has to be destroyed so that it can never do what it is doing now, so that our children do not have to do what we are doing now. We have the thing we do before every mission. We gather with our families for dinner. And when we come back, we gather again in the very first evening. It's hard being away from your loved ones. You never know if you'll get to see them again, your own family. I lose a lot of things because of the war. My daughter is growing up and I realize that I am losing this time.
My wife isn't just a friend, she's my better half. She means everything to me. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about her. I remember February 24th, which was the toughest day for me. We were living in an area that got occupied. We have a toddler who's just 6 months old and my wife had to drive to her parents' place for 25 hours, passing through checkpoints and traffic jams. Waiting was the hardest part for me. Finally, she called me and told they made it home, everything was okay with them, and I felt relieved. Then I told my crew, I'm on duty, boys. All Ukrainians should have only one thing on their minds: to win the war. We might be battered and bruised, but we must keep working, and every citizen should do their part, not just the military. I have a young son and my nightmare is him serving in the Russian army, going to some country to kill people just like they are coming to us now. My son will not serve in the Russian army.
I always think about the people behind me, my family, my parents, my colleagues and all civilians. I'm a soldier, and the meaning of my existence as a soldier is to protect civilians if they strive for this protection. This is what prevents me from giving up.